Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're a fan of juicy tales of karma, clever schemes, and poetic justice, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the world of r/prorevenge, where we'll be narrating some of the most epic and satisfying revenge stories the internet has to offer. Trust me, you won't want to miss these tales of cunning, wit, and just desserts. So grab your popcorn, get comfy, and let's dive into today's dose of delicious revenge. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoy, and subscribe for more stories every week. Let's get started. The day my neighbor regretted stealing my packages. It all began in a quiet suburban neighborhood. I had recently moved into a charming bungalow that was surrounded by trees, chirping birds, and friendly neighbors, or so I thought. For the most part, the people in my neighborhood were genuinely warm and welcoming. They'd bring over home-baked pies, invite me to local community events, and always waved hello when they passed by. The only exception was Mr. Darren, the man who lived right next door. From the moment I moved in, something about Mr. Darren seemed off. He was a tall, gruff man in his mid-50s, with a perpetual scowl etched onto his face. While everyone else in the neighborhood chatted amicably during our weekend lawn mowing sessions, he'd just glare in my direction from his porch, puffing on a cigar. A couple of months after settling in, I began to notice that some of my online deliveries were missing. At first, I assumed they might have been delayed or misplaced, but then I started receiving notifications confirming the delivery of packages that were nowhere to be found. I installed a doorbell camera to get to the bottom of the mystery. One evening, after a notification buzzed on my phone about a package being delivered, I rushed to the door, only to find nothing. I quickly checked my doorbell camera's footage and was stunned. The video clearly showed Mr. Darren brazenly walking up to my porch, grabbing my package, and swiftly heading back to his house. I was flabbergasted. Why on earth would he do this? Curiosity piqued, I approached a few neighbors to discreetly inquire if they had ever faced a similar issue. To my astonishment, a few of them had experienced the same thing. The older folks on the block, Mrs. Jenkins and Mr. Thompson, lamented over lost packages containing medicines, books, and gifts for their grandchildren. Yet, nobody had any concrete proof against Mr. Darren, and without it, they were reluctant to accuse him outright. Having caught Mr. Darren red-handed on my camera, I felt both enraged and empowered. I now had the evidence I needed to confront him. But before doing anything rash, I decided to hatch a plan. A plan that would ensure Mr. Darren would never think of stealing anyone's package ever again. As the weeks passed, I learned more about Mr. Darren's antics. Apparently, he had a bit of a notorious reputation from before I moved in. He was the neighborhood grouch, often involved in disputes over boundaries, tree branches, and even the color someone chose to paint their mailbox. He thrived on conflict. It wasn't just theft, he seemed to have an axe to grind with the world and chose to vent his frustrations on unsuspecting neighbors. While it was clear that confronting him directly might not lead to a favorable outcome given his antagonistic nature, I decided that a taste of his own medicine might just do the trick. With the evidence in hand and a burning desire for justice, I began plotting my revenge. The stage was set, and I was ready to turn the tables on the notorious Mr. Darren. Determined to make Mr. Darren face the consequences, I knew I had to craft a plan that was foolproof and undeniably poetic in its justice. I remembered reading about glitter bombs online, where people sent packages filled with glitter to their enemies, resulting in a shimmering mess. But I wanted to customize this idea, make it unique, and ensure Mr. Darren got a taste of his own unsavory medicine. Firstly, I went online and ordered a few items he couldn't resist: a high-end wristwatch, an expensive pair of headphones, and a sleek tablet. All of these were just empty boxes, but from the outside, they looked like the real deal. Then, I made a trip to the local craft store and purchased the most colorful, hard-to-clean glitter I could find, along with a small device that emitted an ear-piercing alarm when opened. Next, I carefully prepared the package. Inside the enticing tech boxes, I poured in copious amounts of glitter. Then, I rigged the alarm device to the primary box, so as soon as he opened it, not only would he be showered in glitter, but also a loud siren would announce his thievery to the entire neighborhood. With everything set, I waited for the perfect moment. I wanted to ensure maximum exposure. Saturday morning was our local community's mini festival at the park, which meant most of the neighbors would be out and about, just a few houses down from ours. I decided that would be the day I'd receive my special delivery. To make it look authentic, I had my friend, Jake, dress as a delivery guy and drop off the package right at my doorstep. The doorbell camera captured everything, including Jake's exaggerated shout, "Special delivery for my name. I hope someone doesn't steal this valuable package." It was all very over the top, but it had the desired effect. Jake said he saw Mr. Darren peeking through his blinds as he left. Not even 15 minutes later, as I was conveniently out enjoying the festival with my neighbors, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the camera. I could barely contain my excitement as I pulled out my phone. There he was, Mr. Darren, looking both ways before snatching the package off my porch and retreating to his house. As the minutes ticked by, a hushed anticipation enveloped me. And then, it happened. A loud, blaring siren echoed through the streets, followed by what sounded like a surprised yelp. The festival goers, including several of our neighbors, turned their heads in the direction of the sound. The door to Mr. Darren's house flung open, and out he stumbled, covered head to toe in a sparkling cascade of glitter, looking like a disco ball that had seen better days. The sight was so shocking, so unexpected, that for a few moments, everyone was silent. And then, laughter erupted. Children pointed, adults tried, and failed, to suppress their chuckles, and a few even clapped. As for me, I tried to feign surprise, but I couldn't help the triumphant grin that spread across my face. Mr. Darren, for once, was at a loss for words. The neighborhood bully, the perennial grouch, was caught, quite literally, in a shimmering spotlight of his own making. My plan had worked flawlessly. Following the spectacular glitter explosion, Mr. Darren's reputation in the community transformed overnight. No longer was he the feared bully of the neighborhood, he was now the infamous Glitter Man. Even weeks after the event, traces of glitter could be found on his driveway, his porch, and even in his hair and beard during his rare outings. Each sparkle was a glaring reminder of his misdeeds and the poetic justice he had faced. Children would giggle and point as they biked past his house, chanting, Glitter Man, can't catch us if you can." The neighborhood's annual Halloween festivities saw a surge in Glitter Man costumes, kids and a few daring adults dressed in shiny, glitter-covered outfits, complete with alarm sound effects. Mr. Darren, predictably, didn't hand out candy that year. The local community's online forum was abuzz with talk about the incident. While some felt I might have gone a bit overboard, most applauded the ingenuity of the plan. Memes, jokes, and even a short animation parodying the event started circulating, amplifying Mr. Darren's embarrassment tenfold. I, on the other hand, was approached by several neighbors, some of whom I hadn't spoken to in years. They shared their own stories of Mr. Darren's misdeeds and expressed gratitude for giving the old bully a taste of his medicine. Many offered to help if I ever planned another project. Though flattered, I declined. I felt my point had been made. Mr. Darren, possibly in an attempt to salvage his bruised ego, tried to take legal action. He claimed emotional distress, property damage, due to the incessant glitter, and even attempted theft, referring to the boxes he believed contained valuable items. However, with the overwhelming evidence against him, including the footage of him stealing the package from my porch and the dozens of testimonies from neighbors about his serial thievery, his case was laughed out of court. In the subsequent months, a remarkable change came over Mr. Darren. Perhaps it was the weight of public humiliation or maybe a genuine reflection on his actions, but the notorious neighborhood bully started keeping to himself. The loud arguments, the aggressive confrontations, and the suspicious disappearances of packages ceased. One day, I received a letter with no return address. Upon opening it, I found a brief note written in shaky handwriting. I may not like how it happened, but I needed a wake-up call. Thank you for the glittery perspective. D. Surprisingly, as the years went on, Mr. Darren became an active participant in the community. He volunteered at local events, donated to community projects, and even started a neighborhood watch program, ironic, given his past. The old grudges began to fade, and while he never completely shed his Glitter Man moniker, it became more of an affectionate nickname than a mark of shame. The Glitter Bomb event became a legendary tale in our community, told and retold at gatherings, BBQs, and block parties. And while many things changed, one thing remained constant: no package ever went missing from my porch, or anyone else's, again. This story is a delightful mix of clever retribution and unexpected community bonding. It's interesting how a single act of well-executed revenge against Mr. Darren, the notorious package thief, transformed him from the neighborhood menace into the Glitter Man, a figure of local legend. The way the plan unfolded was quite ingenious, particularly the use of a glitter bomb to not only catch the thief but also to turn the tables on him publicly. It's fascinating how the incident led to an entire community coming together, poking fun at the situation, and eventually, seeing a notorious figure reform. What I enjoyed most was the creative and non-harmful approach to dealing with a neighborhood problem, leading to a resolution that's both satisfying and humorous. With all the excitement from that tale, it's time to get into the next one. Let's go. When the school bully became my employee. During my elementary and middle school years, the name Braden was synonymous with terror. Braden was a relentless bully, and unfortunately for me, I seemed to be his favorite target. We first crossed paths in the 3rd grade. I was the new kid, having just moved from another state. Petite for my age, with glasses and a passion for books, I stuck out like a sore thumb in our sports-centric town. Braden, on the other hand, had deep roots in the community. His family owned one of the most successful local businesses, a sprawling car dealership that had been in operation for generations. From day one, Braden made it clear that I wasn't welcome. He'd corner me in the schoolyard, teasing me about my appearance, my voice, and even the lunch I brought from home. He relished every tear he could squeeze out of me, and the other kids often joined in, fearing that opposing him would redirect his attention to them. As the years passed, Braden's tactics grew more malicious. He'd steal my homework, spread nasty rumors about me, and even went as far as destroying my beloved collection of comic books. Teachers were of little help. They'd often turn a blind eye or give a half-hearted reprimand, which only seemed to embolden him further. Even when I tried to defend myself, the odds were never in my favor, given his physical advantage and his knack for manipulation. The emotional toll was undeniable. Every morning, I'd wake up with a sinking feeling in my stomach, dreading the school day ahead. My parents tried to intervene several times, arranging meetings with the school principal and even speaking directly with Braden's parents. But the latter was a lost cause. Braden's parents, much like their son, had an inflated sense of entitlement and dismissed my parents' concerns with a casual wave of their hand. I spent years dreaming of an escape, of a future where I'd be free from Braden's torment. When high school rolled around, I took the first chance I got to switch schools. It felt like a fresh start, and for a time, it was. The shadow of Braden slowly began to fade from my daily life. I made new friends, excelled academically, and even joined a few clubs. By the time I reached my senior year, I had transformed. I'd grown taller, gained confidence, and developed a circle of genuine friends. Most importantly, I had a clear vision for my future. Inspired by my love for comic books, I aspired to open my own comic book store one day. Fast forward a decade, and I'd done just that. With hard work and determination, I'd managed to open Galactic Tales, a comic book store that quickly became a local favorite. It was everything I'd dreamed of, a place where people could come together and share their passion for storytelling. Little did I know that my past was about to catch up with me in the most unexpected way. One crisp autumn morning, as I was arranging the latest batch of graphic novels on the display rack near the entrance of Galactic Tales, I glanced up and locked eyes with a painfully familiar face, Braden. My heart sank. He stood there, hair now thinning, a few extra pounds around the waist, but that smug, arrogant grin unchanged. "Long time no see, geek," he sneered as he stepped inside. It was clear he recognized me immediately. The pit in my stomach grew, but then something within me clicked. This was my space, my haven. I had grown, matured, and more importantly, I had the home field advantage. "I see you've managed to make something of yourself," he said, feigning surprise while inspecting a rare edition Spider-Man comic. "Never thought you'd amount to anything." Instead of cowering, I responded calmly, "Everyone grows up, Braden. Even bullies." My response caught him off guard, and for the first time, I saw a hint of hesitation in his eyes. He smirked, "Well, I thought I'd come in, see what the fuss is all about. Heard you're doing pretty well for yourself. I'm looking for something for my son's birthday." I sensed a slight desperation in his tone, which wasn't there before. Curiosity piqued, I asked about his life. As Braden narrated, a tale of misfortunes unfolded. His family's car dealership, once thriving, had gone bankrupt due to a series of bad investments and market changes. Struggling financially, his wife had left him, and he was working a minimum wage job to keep the bills paid. As I listened, I couldn't help but feel a tinge of sympathy. Life had humbled Braden in ways I could never have imagined. Toward the end of his tale, his voice softened. "Look, I need a favor. I'm short on cash, but my son's been wanting this limited edition comic. Would you be willing to, I don't know, give me a discount or let me pay in installments?" The tables had turned. Here was the same boy, now a man, who had made my childhood a living nightmare, asking for a favor. A rush of emotions overwhelmed me. Part of me wanted to deny him, to make him feel the same humiliation and despair I felt all those years ago. But another part of me, the part molded by years of adversity and growth, felt compassion. After a long pause, I responded, "You know, Braden, this store isn't just about comics. It's about community, understanding, and second chances. You made my childhood tough, but it's because of those challenges that I became who I am today." Picking up the limited edition comic his son desired, I added, "I'll let you have this on one condition. Not installments, not half price. Just a genuine apology." Braden looked taken aback, his ego visibly bruised. But after a moment, he met my gaze, his eyes glossed with tears, "I'm sorry," he whispered. It was sincere, raw, and full of regret. Handing him the comic, I nodded. That's all I needed to hear. Word about the encounter spread like wildfire. Our tight-knit community of comic enthusiasts had always been somewhat insular, so news that Braden, my old bully, had come into Galactic Tales and left with a rare comic, and his tail between his legs, was like chum to hungry sharks. By the next morning, I had customers coming in, not for purchases, but to know if the rumors were true. For the next couple of weeks, the foot traffic in the store surged. And while not everyone came to buy, many did. They wanted to support the store that had stood up to a bully. Business boomed like never before, and I started hosting comic book readings and community events, turning the store into a hub of shared passion and camaraderie. On a personal level, the encounter was cathartic. It was as if years of bottled-up resentment and pain had been released. I felt lighter, happier. Friends and family commented on the visible change in my demeanor. The weight of the past, which had always clung to me like a shroud, seemed to dissipate. I was no longer the bullied kid in the corner. I was a successful business owner who had faced his past and come out stronger. Braden, on the other hand, seemed to go through a transformation of his own. A few weeks after our meeting, he came back to the store, this time, not to buy, but to talk. We sat down over coffee at a nearby cafe, where he shared more about the hardships he'd faced. Losing his business, the end of his marriage, and the constant struggle to keep his head above water had taken a toll on him. The facade of the overconfident bully had been replaced by a vulnerable, broken man, searching for redemption. Our conversations became a regular occurrence. It was during these chats that I came to understand Braden better. The bullying wasn't born out of pure malice but from his own insecurities and a troubled home life. We spoke about therapy, forgiveness, and the possibility of starting anew. I recommended he join a support group for struggling entrepreneurs, a suggestion he took to heart. Months turned into years, and as time went on, Braden managed to find his footing again. He started a small online venture selling car accessories, and with hard work and determination, it began to flourish. We kept in touch, and the bitterness of the past was replaced with mutual respect and a strange sort of friendship. Galactic Tales too underwent changes. With the increased profits, I expanded, opening a small cafe within the store, offering customers a place to relax and discuss their favorite comics over coffee. The store became not just a place to buy comics but a community hub. And as for the rare comic that started it all? Braden, in a gesture of gratitude and friendship, returned it to me a year later, insisting that I sell it and use the profits for the store. But I had other plans. I framed it and hung it prominently in the store, a constant reminder that sometimes, life's most profound lessons come from the most unexpected sources. The story of the school bully turned employee is a gratifying tale of personal growth and retribution. It's interesting to see how the protagonist, once a victim, becomes a beacon of success and forgiveness. The encounter in the comic book store, where past animosities give way to a moment of genuine apology, is a powerful scene. It showcases the unexpected ways life can unfold, turning adversaries into allies. What's particularly enjoyable about this story is the twist of fate that brings Braden, the former bully, into a vulnerable position where he must seek help from the very person he once tormented. The protagonist's decision to respond with compassion, rather than revenge, speaks volumes about their character development. Furthermore, the tale is a testament to the idea that it's never too late to change and that sometimes, those who seem the most undeserving of kindness are the ones who need it the most. It's a narrative that resonates with anyone who believes in second chances and the capacity for individuals to change over time. Alright guys, let's get into the final story. How my landlady tried to evict me unfairly and ended up losing the entire building. For years, I lived in a somewhat rundown but charming apartment complex called Elmwood Heights. The place had a touch of vintage flair, with hardwood floors, high ceilings, and those classic windows that added a lot of character. The neighbors were generally nice, and we had our own small community vibe going on. It was affordable too, which, for a student like me, was the main draw. When I moved in, the building was owned by an elderly couple, the Robertsons. They lived in the building themselves and had a hands-on approach. I rarely had issues, and if there were any minor problems, they'd be on top of it, often fixing things themselves. They were kind-hearted souls who believed in keeping rents reasonable and treating tenants like extended family. Birthday cards in the mail, homemade cookies during the holidays, you name it. However, things took a drastic turn when Mr. Robertson passed away, and Mrs. Robertson, grief-stricken, decided to move closer to her family out of state. She sold the building to a woman I'll call Karen, because, well, she was the epitome of one. From the very first month, Karen started showing her true colors. She had no prior experience managing properties and had purchased the building as an investment. She sent out notices of rent hikes that were far above what was legal in our city. She regularly entered apartments without giving the mandatory 24-hour notice, and started neglecting necessary repairs. I once went a full week in the dead of winter without heat because she was getting quotes to find the cheapest repairman. Moreover, she seemed to take particular pleasure in tormenting me. Perhaps it was because I was on the tenants committee, or maybe it was because I had, on a couple of occasions, stood up against her unreasonable demands. Karen seemed to have a vendetta against me, always finding reasons to pick on my apartment specifically. I would get notices for noise complaints when I was away for the weekend, or she would complain about clutter on my small balcony when others clearly had more stuff. What really set things in motion, however, was when she handed me a wrongful eviction notice, citing a breach of contract. According to her, I had illegal occupants living with me, which was a blatant lie. It was clear she wanted me out, likely to get someone in at an even higher rent or perhaps just to flex her newfound power. But what Karen didn't know was that my best friend was a rising star in the local legal world, specializing in tenant rights. This was about to get very interesting, and little did she know, she had messed with the wrong tenant. I felt a mix of anger and shock when I received the eviction notice, but I also knew that anger wouldn't get me anywhere. So, with my best friend Sarah, the legal genius, by my side, I started gathering evidence. First, I reached out to my neighbors in the building, collecting testimonies about my living habits. Nearly everyone vouched that I lived alone and that there were no illegal occupants. Many of them even provided statements recalling how Karen had wrongly accused them of various things too. It was clear I wasn't her only target, I was just her most recent. Next, I pulled out my rental contract and started going over every clause with Sarah. As we dissected the agreement, it became clear that Karen didn't have a leg to stand on. There was nothing in my actions that was a breach. Sarah advised me to send Karen a formal letter addressing the wrongful eviction notice and requesting her to provide evidence of her claims. So, using Sarah's official law firm letterhead, we sent Karen a strongly worded letter requesting her to substantiate her claims. Then came the pièce de resistance. Sarah did a bit of digging and found out that Karen had not obtained the necessary permits for some renovations she had been doing in the vacant units. These were not just simple paint jobs, she was knocking down walls, making the units open concept without ensuring they met safety codes. Armed with this information, Sarah contacted the city's building inspection office. Within a week, inspectors were at Elmwood Heights. They combed through every apartment where Karen had done her so-called upgrades. As expected, they found multiple violations. She was slapped with hefty fines and was required to reverse all her unauthorized renovations. And as this was going on, word quickly spread among the tenants, causing a whirlwind of anger and unrest in the building. In the midst of all this, I received a call from Karen. Her voice was noticeably shakier than before. She said there must have been a mistake with the eviction notice and that I could disregard it. But I wasn't about to let things slide that easily. Sarah and I decided to hold a tenants meeting to discuss our collective issues with Karen's management. The meeting was a massive success. Over 2/3 of the building's residents attended. Together, with evidence of her misconduct and a list of grievances from multiple tenants, we approached a local news outlet. They were more than interested in the story of a rogue landlord trying to exploit her tenants. The subsequent exposé sent shockwaves through our community. People were outraged at Karen's actions, and the negative publicity meant that she had a hard time finding new tenants for Elmwood Heights. Her investment was quickly turning into a financial sinkhole. But the cherry on top? Sarah, ever the strategic thinker, filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of all the affected tenants for breach of quiet enjoyment and for the monetary damages from her unauthorized rent hikes. The court proceedings were swift, given the mountain of evidence against Karen. It was clear she had been cornered, and with mounting legal fees and a tarnished reputation, Karen was left with few options. Armed with the extensive documentation I had gathered, I teamed up with several other evicted tenants, and we approached a local lawyer known for standing up against shady landlords. As we laid out our case, detailing each instance of unscrupulous evictions and the destruction of the building's historic character, our lawyer's eyes lit up with a mix of rage and excitement. Soon after, a class action lawsuit was filed against Karen Smithson on behalf of the Elmwood Heights tenants. The local press caught wind of the story, and before we knew it, our little community was in the spotlight. Journalists from all over the state descended upon Phelan, capturing the stark contrast between the charming town and the increasingly sterile Elmwood Heights. As the trial began, it became clear that our extensive documentation was the linchpin of our case. The court was presented with before and after photos of Elmwood Heights, testimonies from heartbroken tenants, and evidence of Karen's malicious practices. The public sentiment quickly swung in our favor. It wasn't just about evictions or increased rents, it was about preserving the soul of a community, the heritage of a building that had stood tall for decades, and the rights of tenants to live without fear of unfair eviction. The court battles raged on for months, but our resolve never wavered. The verdict was nothing short of a miracle. Not only was Karen Smithson ordered to pay hefty compensations to the evicted tenants, but she was also mandated to restore the historic elements of Elmwood Heights. But the cherry on top was the court's decision to reinstate all wrongfully evicted tenants, ensuring that they would be allowed to return to their homes without facing the inflated rents. The media hailed it as a victory for the little guy against corporate greed. Karen's reputation was irrevocably tarnished, and soon after, she divested from her real estate ventures in Phelan. Elmwood Heights slowly started to regain its old-world charm, as the mosaics were restored, the ironwork repainted, and the stained glass windows reinstated. But more importantly, the heart of Elmwood Heights began to beat again. The picnics resumed, game nights were back, and the hallways echoed with the laughter and stories of its residents. Mrs. Garcia's grandkids once again filled her home with youthful exuberance, and I returned to my serene nook, penning down another novel inspired by our very own David vs. Goliath tale. In the end, our fight wasn't just about a building, it was about standing up for what's right and preserving the essence of a community. And in that, we emerged not just as victors in a lawsuit but as champions of a cause. Alright, folks, that wraps up today's wild ride through our /prorevenge. I hope you enjoyed these tales of sweet justice as much as I did. If you have your own revenge stories or thoughts on today's episode, drop them in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more incredible stories coming your way. Remember, revenge might be best served cold, but our community here is always warm and welcoming. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next video.